A very good morning to all you wonderful listeners out here for the Universal Mentors Association, the Digital BFSI Virtual Summit 2022. We have had some amazing speakers talking about data modernization in the previous panel, and now we have another very interesting topic, which is, I think the in thing or the backbone of any organization, especially in the banking and finance sector, where we are discussing about the artificial intelligence, blockchain technology, cloud, and beyond influencing the future need of banking sector is what we're discussing. We have some stalwarts of the BFSI industry with us here today. Introducing first the moderator, Mr. Utpal Chakraborty, who's the Chief Digital Officer of Allied Digital Services Limited. Mr. Srinidhi Sharma Rao, Chief Strategy Officer of Egan Life. Mr. Nitin Sharma, who is the CPTO and MD SME Credible, Mr. Vivek Zakardi, who's the Vice President IIFL Finance Limited, Mr. Manoj Sarangi, SVP NSDL, Mr. Prasanna Lohar, Vice President Technology DCB Bank, Mr. Rajaram Maniam B, who's the Chief Risk Officer of Adani Capital, Mr. Dominic Vijay Kumar, who's the Vice President and CTO of Art Housing Finance. Welcome to all you wonderful speakers. We have some stalwarts of the industry talking in this panel today. There are a couple of panelists who will be joining us very soon. Now, since the moderation is to Mr. Utpal Chakraborty, I'll not take a single second away from this amazing panel. And I would now go on the background and ask Mr. Utpal Chakraborty to please take care of the panel. Thank you so much. It's been an honor to have all of you on the stage of Universal Mentors Association. Thank you so much and have a
Thank you.
wonderful panel ahead. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Shandeep, and thank you, the eminent thought leaders and panelists. I'm really glad to be part of this session and on also moderating this session. Even the topic of the session is quite interesting, very close to my heart, and in fact, it covers many things. So, just to give a context, I think it is a broad range of things that we are going to cover today in this particular session, and so I will start with because definitely I mean in the pandemic, so I think it has pandemic has changed a lot to the entire digital world and also our lives. So I will start with a question, and I will go to probably all the panelists one by one. What I can see in my screen. So I think what propelled the digital adoption today is, I mean, pandemic is playing a very major role into that. I mean, starting from the enterprises, small or big enterprises, building their digital ecosystem or their digital skeleton first to enable the adoption of other digital products and services, or to offer those services to their customers. So and also, and that includes a range of things like adoption of cloud has gone up. Then the news and technologies like artificial intelligence, machine learning, big data, blockchain, and all other things are also getting a huge momentum. Although initially it was kind of a buzz for many technologies, although I mean the solutions are coming up, but we were scratching the surface. But now I can see a huge adoption is happening. Similarly, on the mobility world, on the mobile technologies, same goes to here, and also the other areas. So, what are your views? So, probably, uh, uh, if I can start with Nitin, because I can see Nitin on the top of my list. So, no particular sequence. I will go one by one. How do you see like this pandemic has changed the entire thing, and what we can see, and probably how it is going to continue in 2022 and 23 kind of thing? Nitin, I will start with you.
Sure. I think in our experience, what we have seen is there has been a big realization across the spectrum of enterprises, especially um, on the need of digitization. So we have seen a lot of corporates who were earlier adverse to the idea of maybe digitizing a particular set of processes or products. They have jumped onto the bandwagon in terms of doing that very quickly. At the same time, on the bank side also, there has been huge push on the digitization side. In the bank specifically, I think if you see retail banking has always been typically ahead slightly, I think, compared to the corporate banking in terms of what called all kind of digital tools, etc., are used there. So consumer related or acquisition, their engagement is very digital driven, but the corporate side has always been where there was a lot of workforce around having a lot of relationship managers who were primarily managing relationships with these corporate anchors and then providing them with the banking services. So that's where we saw a biggest shift, especially on the corporate banking side. Even we have been working with the last 4.5 years with a lot of banks today, especially on the working capital finance platforms. But we saw huge adoption by banks in the last couple of years, especially on the working capital finance space. And this was, of course, led by several different other things as well. So we saw a lot of adoption around things like identity management on video KYC, location based identification, having any kind of a digital collection infrastructure rather than having total feet on the street model. The second thing I think, so this is primarily what I talked about, the corporates and the banks, the large corporates and the banks. But on the SME side, I think we also saw a shift. One with respect to in terms of how do they manage their working capital or finances in a better manner, so which involved they were started thinking about planning this ahead in time, at the same time utilizing several digital tools to have a better prediction on their overall cash flow. So these are the major two things that I've seen in the last 2.5 years. And the result has been, I think, for our business, we have seen a huge spike in the overall number of transactions that we were doing or the volume of transactions that we are doing. So that has been a positive move. So overall, I think the way we are headed, I see things to be very positively moving in this direction now.
Good to hear, and you have mentioned a couple of points which are very important, and I think I should I'll go to Srinidhi with the same question, like how do you see how it is happening? I mean, is it going to probably slow down after some time, or it will take some it will go in the same momentum, or probably it is going to accelerate? What are your views? I mean, we all know that yes, there is a huge transformation happening in all the areas, and how do you see it? Like, is it going better, or it is after some time it will be probably it will come to kind of a saturation, and probably it may slow down.
Yeah, no, it's an amazing question. Thanks for that, Utpal. So now I'll tell you where we are coming from, so that so I'll give you some context to what I'm going to talk about, right? So prior to the pandemic, right, as we were coming into the pandemic over the last say 18 to 24 months of pandemic, or even 36 months, I should say, where every company wanted to do digital transformations, to cater to the quote unquote digital customer, the millennials, and so on and so forth, right? That was slowly happening. It started in bits and pieces, then it became like the core of most of the company strategies, and so on and so forth, right? Then suddenly we got the pandemic, right? And the entire life turned upside down, in the sense that lot of assumptions on which we had built the businesses in the past, right, suddenly turned out to be like not true anymore, right? If you take the retail world, for example, like Amazon or Walmart, and so on and so forth, right? So there were some patterns, with respect to how a person purchases on a weekday versus weekend, consumption patterns, and so on and so forth, right? All that assumptions were thrown in the air come the pandemic, right? So all the forecasting models also that we had built doesn't hold anymore. Similarly, if you take a bank or an insurance company, how many people walk into your branch on a given weekday, etc., etc. Although there were some established patterns on which we had built our businesses, all that went for a toss. And as this digital transformation was happening, there was other digital transformation that was happening that was accelerated by the by the pandemic, which is basically, for example, if you take my father, right, just before the pandemic, he was quite uncomfortable and also unreliable about doing a banking thing on a mobile, right? But through the pandemic, because of some amount of external force and because all of us were at home and doing a lot of things, he is 18 months to 2 years into the pandemic, he's completely comfortable doing his banking transactions, doing his Amazon, doing his Uber, etc., everything on the phone, right? So it's a huge sudden shift that would have happened in the normal course of 5 years to 7 years, suddenly happened in a matter of 2 years. Now, it's all, of course, there are all good things coming around it, but the challenge to the BFSI is that now my father, right, compares the journey that he will have on a banking site, banking app, or an insurance company's website, right, to an Uber or a Amazon or a Swiggy, right? That kind of journey he expects here also, seamless journey, right? So comparison is not just within BFSI, but comparison is across industries, and he expects that kind of a seamless journey here. But being a bank or an insurance company, I know I'm constrained. I had to know who you are. Swiggy doesn't need to know your PAN number before it delivers your idli vada dosa, right? But I, as an insurance company or a bank, need to know who you are before I issue your things to insurance policy to you, right? So those are the challenges that we have, unique challenges that we have, right? Now, how can we transform so quickly to come up to this expectation, right? That is a challenge that all of us are facing as banks and insurance companies, right? And this is not a simple transformation. This is a people transformation, because we have always been doing business in a certain way, right? Now we have to suddenly change to the new age. It's a people related thing. It's a business process related thing. It's of course a technology related thing, etc. Right? So what are all the things that you will focus on with the limited resources that you have? And secondly, how will you prioritize so that you get the best bang for the buck, within the next, say, 6 months or 12 months, before the customer thinks that, okay, you are in old age and he doesn't want to do business with you, right? So this is the challenge that we have been facing. Now, if you go back to the example that I told about my father, right? Now he is completely comfortable with Uber and Amazon and HDFC.com and so on and so forth, right? Now that's not going to go back at all. There's no way it's going to go back, right? If at all, it might accelerate, but definitely, at least this is the new normal. So digitization is here to stay, and we as organizations have to transform to cater to that. And comparison of the customer is not with just with another bank or another insurance company. It is with everybody else out there in the world. It could be Amazon, it could be somebody else, right? So a comparison is with everybody. So definitely here to stay and to accelerate.
Absolutely, absolutely. See, I think very valid points, and even I have seen similar kind of transformation, even for the senior citizens, from a conventional way of doing a lot of the things and moving to kind of a very what do you call digital way of doing that. Okay, so absolutely. So same, I'll go to Vivek with the same question. Like, how do you see it, Vivek? Okay, and do you see uh, probably you can bring little bit of India context also, and how do you actually see it, Vivek? So yeah.
Yeah, hi. Utpal. Okay. So we have seen that the implications of a COVID-19 have accelerated digital adoption. The increasing use of a technology to work, play, and stay connected has shaped new digital habits. As many countries are currently in a various stages of a recovery, now is the time to reset, pivot, and think big to transform our business operations to match the new digital expectations that have emerged. Consumer behaviors have become increasingly digital. It's not surprising given the lockdown measures in many countries and people only opportunity to connect with those outside of their own household being through digital channels. What's interesting, however, is the rapid adoption and a variety of online services offered and tapped into. The COVID 19 pandemic disrupted how enterprise operated, but not all were affected equally or in the same ways. Companies' risks were often exacerbated by the legacy technology that once provided the foundation for their success. Modernizing core business processes and applications has been a priority for years, but such initiatives assume a far greater importance now. Cloud technologies have emerged as a critically for the enterprise striving to meet changing customers' demands and to stay relevant to the market. Application migration and modernization in the cloud have proven that they can increase resiliency and agility to address changing business requirements. Enterprises are now looking at cloud-led modernizations as an important lever to compete effectively, stay relevant, and improve agility. The application modernization and migration market continues to shift towards the use of a cloud-native technologies and a lower emphasis on poor infrastructure-led lift and shift migration. While increasing the transformation of a legacy applications is both difficult and a time-consuming. For modernization programs to be successful, enterprises need to select the right modernization strategy based on their specific organizations and business goals. The market now is a leaning towards a platform-led modernization approach, and when we execute it, this can make an enterprise more resilient, responsive, and relevant. So definitely, it will help us to build a future-proof architecture by transforming legacy systems through the use of cloud-native technologies. And this approach allows enterprise to optimize cost, improve time to market, and enhance the end user experience.
Excellent. I think excellent. And I think you have touched a lot of things. So with that, I'd like to go to Manoj. Manoj, now, what is your opinion? Or so one at one side we can see like the customer experience. Okay, that part of the thing. I mean, providing more and more services to the customer and also looking into the customer convenience and the experience kind of thing. But I think probably many of the enterprises, and I'm not going into a specific field or industry. So during this period or today also, they are building a lot of things, okay, for their customers in their digital channels. But if you look at the experience versus utility point of view, because I mean, in a country like India, I think we should first think about the utility and then the experience. Okay, probably when there is a trade-off between utility and experience, I think in a developing country, the utility should take the upper hand than or the precedence than the experience. But at the same time, I'm not ignoring the experience. The experience is also very, very important. So how do you see like the entire thing is changing?
Right.
Manu?
Okay. Excellent question. And just wanted to give you perspective on. See, while the social distancing started and the digital brought us together, and I would like to piggyback on what Srinidhi told. I think the corollary to that is if his father is using all this fintech and he cannot get off it, the companies who are providing this information and the infrastructure, can they stop doing it? Absolutely not. So that's going to stay. A little background before I utility question, before I attempt to answer that. See, 3 4 months into the pandemic, people were guided and organizations are guided in their investment into new technology to enable people to work and deliver services in these areas. But when organizations found out that this is something that is a new normal, and this is going to stay, there are investments started pouring in, and obviously those investments cannot be reversed at this point of time. And going back to again, I would like to go back to again Srinidhi, what the points brought in. People are now used to it, and they expect more from it rather than the kind of need is not going down, right? And that is going to stay, and that will be new normal. The apprehensions that organization had was with respect to the productivity and other issues, which actually over the time, now it is 2 years, people have found solutions to those. And there are several studies that have been done now, which says that the productivity has actually increased when people working remote. And I'll like to give one statistics. There is a survey that has done. 50% of people would responded saying that they would not like to go physically to a financial institution. like a bank or any other institution, they would not like to go there physically. So it's going to stay. The fintech and other peripheral industry is something that going to stay. Now, on the utility and experience, it is prevail or perish. If you cannot provide the right match of utility and experience, that's something that is not going to work in this market, competitive market. We have seen over the time several applications, several new products launches have failed just because there is no balance of this utility and experience. So I would not say that one should outrun the other. Both should have a right balance, not equal balance, right balance for it to succeed. And customer experience is as important as the utility value. If there is no utility value, and tremendous customer experience, it will be used for some time and then it will be dumped. So it will be, it will just perish. It will have a natural death. So that we have seen in the market, many products, many solutions which have been brought to, and with a lot of investments, that has not found adoption. So that's not going to work. And some of the things which have actually kind of propelled this growth in this pandemic is some of the technology that all of us spoke about. And I don't think I would go over and repeat it again. And cloud, IoT, blockchain, AI, ML, and then those actually form bulk of the technology that gets adopted, and in different forms. And this is something that going to stay and grow. So those are my initial comments on your first question.
Excellent, excellent, Manos. I think you have answered it brilliantly. And with that, I'll go to BJ, okay, because BJ is like waiting for long, and but I don't have any choice. I'll have to go one by one in the series. So BJ, and I think BJ, we have been into similar. I mean, in the same panel. I think couple of times earlier as well. So Vijay, my question to you is like now today, uh, all the enterprises are trying to render their products and services digitally, right? Now there are also challenges in terms of making a physical product into a digital form, right? So although you want it, but there are a lot of things need to be done to actually that product or service is digitally ready to be delivered to your customer. So how do you see? I mean, definitely my first question still stays, but along with that, I'm just attaching this part also. So if you can touch upon this thing also. So first is how the pandemic is changing the entire spectrum of adoption of new technologies, cloud, this, that, and all those things, and also like from a enterprise perspective, how these challenges, because many of the products are, I mean, primarily physical products. Okay, probably people have never thought of make it digital. Okay, and now they are forced to make it digital, right? So how challenging it is. Vijay, I think you are speaking on mute, so you will have to unmute yourself.
Okay, sorry. Thanks, Utpal. I think there are two questions to me which I need to very generically ask me. And thanks a lot, and I thank all the panelists to be part of this. Okay, when you look at the as a whole, overall, we talk about as an enterprise, building a digital product will always be a challenge. Okay, because the kind of industry we work at, let me be very precise on the industry where I come from, the housing finance, where we are a regulated company. Okay, you cannot have an 100% digital product anywhere for that matter. I'll give you a simple example. Well, when pandemic started, we had a lot of logins happen, and there were certain loans which are already dispersed. Only thing, the documentation was pending, where we had to get those loan agreements, sanction letters getting signed. This was technically highly impossible for us. Though we had technology in place, your e-sign was there, e-stamping was there, but certain regulatory limitations which we couldn't do. This is from the services point of view. When you look at the products, like there are certain products which cannot be digitally made. For example, when you are lending a loan to a tea shop owner or to a Ola driver, there your product has to be a little bit hybrid model, because these people don't come with the exact kind of, because I'm giving a very precise examples because this is more related to the business what we do, and many of our panelists also from the same background. Keeping in mind, the financials were never been part of that. So there we have to get into the hybrid culture, there where we need to get into the physical mode, take the documentation, get it done. So these are two things, so at any point of time in the kind of industry and the kind of regulatory norms we have, we cannot have a 100% digital product. We should have always go with an hybrid product, because in a long run, hybrid product is always helpful for us. So 100% digital cannot be anywhere for that matter. The kind of business we for that matter. Even when you look at any other, for example, you take out aviation also, there also you can't have 100% digital things. Though you take a, what do you call that, you have an e-boarding card, you still have to have certain amount of, all this cannot be digitally driven. So there are certain things which we have to be very, very precise and accept that technology and business runs together with a hybrid model. It's a, you can always say that it's more of an default understanding what everyone have, and we go as per that one. And when you come out the services, customer services, when you look at the other side of the services, what we give to the customers, 100% can, again, we cannot give 100% digital services. Only one place we played very important role was during collection time, where there was a pandemic, where we were not allowed to go to the customer. There we were able to bring in some kind of payment gateway solution using UPIs, using wallets for making the payment. But there also we had so much of challenges that, customers were not willing to do it. Customers were saying, have their own reasons. UPI nahi chal raha, network nahi hai, GPRS nahi chal raha, meri phone mein nahi. I mean, there were a lot of problems. When you look at my digital transactions, payment transaction of the customer during this last 24 to 36 months, where there was a huge lockdown, especially March 19, 2019, 20, I say, there was absolutely zero. Our collections, we went to a big NPA ratio, which we are to doing it now. So one is the services, whatever you give, we should understand the kind of customers we do, and there is no alternate option for us. Not only the adoption is important for us, the customer should, adopt certain things that, he has to pay. Commitment should be there. You can build a digital platform, n number of things can be brought in, but everywhere you always should understand what is the ground reality, because there are some fintechs, they come with 100% digitization. They say that, everything can be digital, but technically it's not possible. I'll give you another example. Last 2 years, we've been struggling to get my loan agreement e-signed. We did a lot of legal negotiation. We spoke to a lot of legal partners, one of the leading legal partners in India. We got an opinion from them. But end of the day, yesterday during one of our meeting, my loan agreement for, especially in the housing finance, cannot be e-signed. It has to be physically signed. The whole project, what was done for the whole year, last 2 years of paying what we had taken doing, totally went for a toss. And now the process of digitization, carrying a complete digital documentation failed, especially in the lending segment like us, where secured loan, where you have interest coming up on that particular agreement, so you cannot do a e-sign. So these are certain things. So the business, the technology cannot be 100%. It always works on a hybrid model. We have to go along with it. Must be, going forward, people may start adopting it. Then things will be different. And with regards to your second question, you talk about IoT, cloud services. Yes, especially to be very precise, COVID has taught us dependency on in-house things cannot be there. You should always find an alternate option. Cloud plays a very, very important role for us, right from the cost perspective, from the accessibility, availability, everything. Because during this 24 months or 36, during that time, cloud has really played a very important role, especially when it comes to business. There was no impact on the business. Yes, there was a little bit of impact on the business, but technically speaking, my business, my organization never had impact on the business, because we were working on the complete cloud infrastructure. When you talk about my complete core lending system, accessibility, collections, whether you talk about your HRMS, anything for that matter. So there was a little bit of a disturbance in initial stages, but gradually we got. So cloud is going to be the future. You talk about IoT is going to be the future now. Then blockchain will be very important, because we use certain amount of BRE engines everywhere. And we use one of a solution called Hunter, which is basically similar to your blockchain technology, where you have 10 people, I think 15 to 20 banks, which have already been registered with that. And we use that technology for verifying, identity verifying of the customer. There's the customer applied application and then loan at multiple places. So we use that technology. Then you talk about your blockchain I covered, and artificial intelligence is playing a very, very important role today, because my complete delinquency projections of my collections after pandemic is done on the data what I collect. So artificial intelligence is playing a very important role. And second thing, AI and ML plays an important role when you talk about the financial year, bank statement, the physical impact and the manual intervention of the users have been reduced. The TAT has increased, and it is given a better experience to the from the customer centric point of view. The sanctioning of the loan, you can say, it is improved. So technology is growing. Adaption is very important. Second thing, we cannot totally depend on technology. So one more thing I want to forget to tell you: during this pandemic, we really tested the infrastructure of our country, because we didn't know how internet works. The remote locations, we had problems. I think for from the time the lockdown went to at least 6 to 7 months, we had a hell of a lot, because my call center was totally on cloud. I had to move everyone with the laptops. Now talking to the customers through a cloud connection, internet was totally slow. It was pathetic. Only in the when you talk even the urban areas, metros like Delhi, there are certain black spots. When you come to my place where I stay in South Delhi, there are certain areas where you don't have connectivity. Only Geo works, only Tata works, only Idea works. So there are these things can always now gradually. I think even the telecom operators have improved, and people have started consuming gradually growing. So again, hybrid is always a right solution for us to work. Never assume that technology is 100% everywhere. We have to work, respect the regulatory requirement, and focus more on the customer centric and adapt. Adaptation is very important, whether it's the internal customer or the external customer. This is all how you're going to sell your things to them. That's what.
Absolutely, Vijay. I think you have touched a lot of things. Okay, so
Thank you so
I think
much.
many of my questions that are been coming up. So you have even touched upon those. So the next question that I have in my mind is essentially now there is a hot topic which is going on is bank versus fintechs or bank with fintechs. And there are many schools of thought essentially. So if you look at because what we have seen is when fintechs came into the market, so essentially they were dealing with, or they were interested to deal with the front end part of the business, so customer facing part of the business, and they were not interested, or also they were not equipped to deal with the back end system, because banks are already equipped with that. It is already regulated. They have got the infrastructure and they have got everything. But slowly, what we are seeing is even now fintechs are getting interested into the backend part of things also. Okay, which probably for some of the cases they are partnering with the banks, and there are good stories for that. But in some cases, they are also trying to do it of their own. And now, if you look at, I mean, from the news and all, the big players are coming into the market. So probably if Alibaba comes into this scenario, or probably Google or Microsoft or other, or Amazon comes into this. So how do you see, like how it is going to be a different ball game altogether? Okay, probably in India it will be different scenario, and globally it will be a different scenario. So I would go to Nitin. Okay, so Nitin, how do you see this uh, in this? And before Nitin, before you start, so I can see only these are the panelists, because in the name list there were a lot, but I can see only this. So I'm assuming that nobody else has joined apart from Vijay, Nitin, Srinidhi, Vivek, and Manoj, right? So we have only this. Yes. So Nitin, yeah, please.
Sure, thanks, Utpal. See, I think just to call out clearly, I think I'm a strong promoter in terms of a collaborative approach between fintech and banks. I think that has to be the way forward if we are looking for the overall good of the customers. Uh, Now coming to other things, I think what has happened, and this question is certainly not new. I think this has been going along for past few years, but we have seen several success stories, including Credible as an example, where we work collaboratively with the 25 plus lenders, which includes large banks as well as NBFCs, and we have created several success stories around that. I think what as a major concern that remains, and probably there is some level of insecurity on both the sides, that eventually who would own the customer. So if banks and fintechs are working together, at the end, would a bank have a larger control on the customer, or a fintech would have a larger control? I think that's what there is a insecurity, but I don't think we should be looking at it from that particular lens. From my perspective, I think the company who would be providing the best customer experience, and touching back to I think some of the panelists who already covered this point, but the companies who would be providing the best customer experience in a particular vertical or as a horizontal would be the ultimate winner. They would be the people who would be owning the customers at the end. But largely, if you see today, I think the banks today have a very broad spectrum. So they offer several products in credit, on the asset side, liability side, current saving account, insurance, investments, and all. So they are present everywhere. While today's fintech spectrum is very specific. So if you talk about us, we are very focused on only working capital finance today, solving for that particular need. You would have fintechs who are working only in payments, and then there are several such examples. So today, I think the best way out is, I think, banks be ready to partner with wherever they think that they don't have a strength in terms of providing the best customer experience. They partner with that particular best fintech in that particular category, and wherever they think that yeah they can lead it themselves, they should go independently, I think, without any fintech's help. But the way things have been shaping up is, uh, I believe the banks would be ready with an infrastructure to stitch programs very quickly together for the end customers with the help of fintechs, would be the ones who would scale at a rapid pace in the next 5 years. So if there are banks
Excellent,
who won't have,
excellent, Nitin.
yeah.
Excellent. So I can see Prasanna had joined. Hey, hi, Prasanna. I think
Yeah, good afternoon.
good
Upal.
afternoon.
Good
Yeah,
afternoon,
so
everybody.
you joined a little bit late, or I didn't see you in my first question. I don't know because
I
in my
think just 5 minutes,
screen.
2 minutes before I
Okay,
was
okay,
at
okay, great.
backstage, so they approved in my
Yeah.
request. Yeah.
Okay, okay, great. So we have got Prasanna here, and he's, I mean, a very good thought leader in terms of banking and all those things, and he's there in a lot of programs. He's a good friend of mine as well. So
Yeah.
Prasanna, yeah. So Prasanna, I'll straightly go to you. So we were discussing like. Today, if you see like this banks and fintechs kind of thing, so there are many speculations, whether it is bank versus fintech or how it is going to take a shape. And if you see now, the fintechs are also interested in the backend part of the bank. Okay, so they want to get into some of the backend things. Whereas, I mean, probably a couple of years back, they were more interested in the front end customer facing part of it.
Yes,
So
yes.
how do you see this question? How this is shaping up? I think you are the best person to answer, coming from a complete banking background.
Yeah, I think what is happening, based on my experience in banking, in 2014-15, banks were only looking at innovations around front office, right? How do we really take care of our customers? How do we onboard them easily? And whatever the investments were typically around the payments kind of ecosystem, right? Or to create a better mobile banking app, or how do we create a better internet banking, and so on. So while banks have seen, while they have moved further in the whole ecosystem, right? Say example, at a DCB bank, we often discuss what is there for us in the next year, right? And based upon that, I think if you look at the current banking ecosystem, we have a lot of challenges to really taken care, right? At the it is not only it is not only to do some kind of a front innovation. I think primarily now banks are looking at how do we improvise their digital culture, right, within a bank. How at every level, somebody sitting in a branch or somebody sitting at a MD's office, how they are aligned with the bank strategy, right? So that DNA has to go everywhere, right? So that's how we could see digital officers or innovation officers are now playing role to take care. I think then next, customer simplicity is not only at a means where a customer is doing transaction, but how do we really take care of his dispute management, or you talk about how do we take care of his complaint management if fraud has happened, how it has to be taken care for a customer's convenience, or various awareness around the security, right? So how do we do innovatively? So there are lot many things are coming up. Then bad assets, right? So banks want to move away from the big, this is the biggest problem. How do we really take care of the NPA customers, right? Suppose one NPA customer is there at a bank, how can I really safeguard against a fraudulent or a NPA customers, where now RBI is looking at how to have a streamlined data movement from one bank to another bank through these RBIs. I think so that kind of innovations are now bringing in, so that we have a lesser number of bad assets, right? Because one bad asset implicates around additional 100 loans we have to do, right, based upon the ticket size of a loan and so on. There are many more other things. How do we onboard new customers, right? So once you onboard, how do we take care of a complete engagement servicing on platforms? So as you rightly said, fintechs are in our way. How do we immediately onboard fintechs? Typically it takes 15-20 days to onboard a fintech after a business agreement, right? So there are a lot of companies are now coming in, so-called banking as a service, right? So they are ready with all the plugins. Say example, FD plugin or CASA plugin, and they just say fintech, hey, you want to talk to 3 banks, this is plugin already ready, please come and integrate with us. Likewise, we have seen Decentro or some of the Sciency are bringing on that kind of a business model, right? There are many other things, right? A lot of reconciliation reconciliation settlement in the back end. So NPC had done some Vajra kind of ecosystem. Now they are embarking that ecosystem to the next level, so that they can bring a thin or a blockchain layer across all the ecosystems of a bank or other ecosystem like ONDC or Aadhaar. So how can we leverage and the whole stuff, right? Even at a regulator side, Utpal, what I'm saying, if you see our regulatory guidelines in, say example, digital payment security controls, right? I think 10-12 points are only around mobile apps. So one innovation comes and say this is an innovation which can go into all mobile banking apps. All of a sudden we are saving that manpower and everything around that, controlling that thing with small innovations, right? Detecting malware, detecting fraudulent Wi-Fi, and these kind of innovations we are seeing how can we bring on, right? Then in the back end, what happens now? You have seen bank A has gone down or bank B has gone down, their interbanking is not working. So it is inconvenience for the customer. And moreover, there is an additional reporting mechanism which we'll have to do before 2 hours or before 4 hours based upon the intensity of a issue. So can we not have a immediate trigger to the regulator? This has gone down, this has gone up. The way we do internally at a bank level, right? So these are available for the internal business stakeholders, say they know, or a contact center stakeholder, they know that something has gone down, right? Or before customer coming in, find it out what has gone down, right? So it's not only automating on a front. Now banks are looking at how do we automate back offices at a data center, right? Taking backups or adding those or removing those users on a regularly basis. How do we keep network security intact? How data movement has to happen from one system to another system with a SFTP or a secure way, right? Because otherwise there are a lot of challenges like skimming of your card, right? Which we have seen 3 to 4 years back, 32 million cards were available at a darknet and so on. So I think in a nutshell, if you look at currently 2022, what is that we are looking at? We have seen our last banking, right, which was typically around mobile banking, internet banking. So now today we are at open banking, right? Opening those API with a secure way. How do we fast track that integrations with the fintechs or partners? How do we have a co-lending models, right? So that it's not only bank do lending, but with the co-lending model, we can have a many more new prosperous business model, right? Like we are doing with some of our partners like IFL, Muthoot, and so on. And while doing this, how do we measure the performance of every individual, right? Automatically, say example, how bank is performing. So there are some innovations we are doing. Customer came in at 10 o'clock, going at 6 o'clock in the evening. So it performance is not great, right? But customer came in 10 o'clock, went at 10:30, 11. I think his work is done. Maybe there are many more additional innovations are coming up in a various areas, in the front areas, in mid areas like automations, and in the back area with the new technology like AI, blockchain, and both all of these has to come and work together cohesively for taking a bank's orbit to the next level, right? I think these are all things are happening, and I think people are changing, management is changing, a lot of digital dexterity is taking rest of the things like technology and so on. I think it's a beautiful time. We are doing banking in 2022. Next time IoT is 5G will become reality, then additional beautiful things will be in our life, right? Additional security, and moreover customer expectation is going to change with the new technologies, right? We keep on hearing metaverse. Day before yesterday, some bank has announced that they are creating complete bank branch experience onto metaverse, right? This I was practicing 3 years before, and my management said it is not at all needed. But now customer is asking, right? This is a need, right? So all of a sudden now my bank says, yeah, we had to do it. So in a nutshell, current banking is our KRA or responsibility, but always look at what is coming in form of a customer expectation and how technology and our new business process will align, will be helpful. So I think this collaboration is going to help, because we don't have that fast fintech offices, right? So which can
Absolutely.
really deliver some experiences. So that's why it's a collaboration is a game changer. Yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely, Prasanna. I think you have touched upon many things, and very rightly said one touched upon one area which is like probably till now there were technology buzzes, right? AI, ML, blockchain, and all those things. I think now the industry is maturing a little bit, and they are going into how collaboratively or how we can utilize the best of these technologies and build the business use cases or build the business applications. So I think that maturity is now coming into the market, and a lot of things are happening in that direction. And of course, as you touched upon the metaverse and all those things, which is also amalgamation of a lot of many technologies and giving that kind of a virtual experience to the user, immersive experience to the users. And so thank you, Prasanna, for that. So with that, I'd like to go to Srinidhi. Srinidhi, the same question basically, but here I would like to bring in another angle, and I would like you to answer. That is, the fintech companies, the fintech firms are basically coming up with the technological strength, right? So all AI, ML, mobility, so they know all analytics and all these things. Today, banks are also equipped with that. It's not like that banks are not, but yeah, probably they are a little bit ahead because they are coming from that particular background. And bank has the complete domain background, and also it has got the complete infrastructure and regulatory, of course, one of the most regulated industry. So how do you see this collaboration happening when we talk about small fintechs? Because integrating small fintechs into the ecosystem of a bank is easier, right? Because they are also probably looking at that. But again, coming back to my earlier question, like when the big players like Alibaba or Amazon, okay, who has got all money power, muscle power, everything, if they are coming into, and that's what is, we are hearing, right? If that is coming, then how it is going to shape up? Srinidhi.
Yeah. No, that's actually a brilliant question, and I want to start with echoing what Nitin and Prasanna brilliantly put it, right? So just taking a few steps back, right? The entire gamut of digital, right, and the digital world as the world is digitizing, right, is going to be an ecosystem play. There is no two ways about it. Right? So just if you take this phone, right, so there is somebody who did the the device, right, manufactured the device. There's somebody who did the operating system, and there is hundreds of other people who have done the apps for this particular thing, right? And it's an ecosystem play. There is no two ways about it. And that's exactly what's going to happen in the BFSI sector, as we are already seeing, and that what happened in the CPG retail just a few years ago, etc. Right? That's the reality. And there are macroeconomic reasons why that is true, and that is going to be the curve. And let's not get into the technicalities of it, though, right? But it's going to be an ecosystem play, and every player in this ecosystem has to figure out where they want to play, so that they find their own place in this ecosystem. And in order to do in this ecosystem, everybody has to be really good at something, right? If you are a bank, you better be really good at one thing as far as banking is concerned. Maybe it's about risk management, maybe it's about your predictive models of who will repay your loan, or whatever those things are, right? But you should be really good at one thing, so that you find your space in that gamut of ecosystem where there are hundreds of different players. Now, and as we are clearly seeing already in the BFSI world, we have all these people who do CKYC, EKYC, Sign-Z, Karza, and all as Prasanna was talking about, and then we have all these account aggregators these days, and so on and so forth, right? So so many things happening together. Now, when there are so many people playing in this ecosystem, obviously in some cases there is going to be some amount of friction in terms of two players coming from two different worlds, right, want to play the same aspect. So maybe we were fighting for the front end all these days, now there is a little bit of the fight for the back end because some bigger players are coming and so on and so forth. Now, what the incumbents need to do is to figure out, okay, in this entire equation where I am a bank and there are 50 other banks in India, and there is a big digital player coming into India to in order to disrupt this, etc. Right? So, what is my unique value proposition given my legacy and all the unique things that I have? Plus, how can I cater to today's customer using those things, plus whatever I will reinvent, right, and transform and figure out, right? So that what is it that gives me as the proposition due to which the customer will come back to me? Is it my legacy? Maybe do I want to play on legacy? Maybe do I want to play on my the fact that I have 150 years of experience in banking, right, as a company, right, so on and so forth. Or do I want to be super fast in figuring out the right algorithms and so on and so forth, so that I completely digitize and actually start competing with an Alibaba, etc. Right. So each company has to find its own this one,
Absolutely.
no, a unique place. But there is no way you can ignore this, right, or say that okay, I'll do my own thing, right? You will become irrelevant.
Absolutely.
So either you
Yeah.
compete or or you collaborate, but figure out your own uniqueness.
Thank you, Srinidhi. So I think brilliant point. And with that, I would like to go to Manoj. Again, on the same question, a little bit on, because what we have seen is also this fintech farms. Uh, they are actually contributing hugely into the financial inclusion, or you may say green finance, or probably you can say sustainable finance kind of things. And many experts still believe that many things which bank were not been able to do till now. Okay, so they try to do it. And from a customer point of view, of course, there are huge utilities in terms of that, because you can think about the drivers, the plumbers, okay, the housemates and all, because they didn't have any kind of digital transaction kind of a thing, all through cash and all those things. They were not being able to avail any of the facilities like loans, any kind of health insurance, other insurance, and all other things. And now fintechs coming into picture, all came under the financial umbrella. They are enjoying the financial services, products, and all those things. So in that way, from a customer point of view, customer wants this kind of intrusion into the banking area, this fintech intrusion, right? If you look at, but as a whole, how do you see it? I mean, how it is shaping up, and how it is going to shape up probably in next 5 years, 10 years, or something like that?
Excellent question. Let me give you little statistics. Again, I am very fond of statistics, so give you little statistics to start with. Till mid 2021, there is a report by McKinsey where it says that the cash payments has reduced by 4 to 5% globally. So that includes, because if you look at the developed countries, they are anyway using the cashless transactions. So 4 to 5% is a significant increase in cashless payments, globally. So fintech, actually, the rise of fintech actually started a little before the pandemic. So it was around 2019 it started. I'll just try to touch upon one point that Nitin brought, very interesting point, and who owns the customers, so bank or fintech. So it's actually, it has to be a peaceful coexistence, or it has to be a symbiotic relationship between the fintech and banks. Else, it will be a, the banks, big banks or big organizations will be a predator and gobble up the fintech and be part of it. So it will be no more a fintech, it will be a bank that providing that services. Yeah. Coming back to the future, what I see is, fintech should improve applications to suit customer demands. So they should harness, standardize, analyze, and optimize information, and recommend action which is based on real-time data streams. So that means something is happening in the market. I should be able to, let's say, let me give you an example. Let's say I have to invest in a stock market. Okay, and based on today's trend and my cash balance, uh, I should get a recommendation on real time basis what investment I should make at that point of time. So this is just one example. Okay, I also like to touch upon one point that Prasanna had brought in. API security, which is of paramount importance. See, if you see a lot of data that has been kind of available on the dark web, which has been exfiltrated from various organizations, is actually through flaws that have been exploited in API security. So what we do is we tighten our web services, we tighten our commonly available services, but what we probably kind of has been little lax in many organization is API. So we connect, the organization connect with their partner ecosystem, with the fintechs and everyone through API interfaces. So that's a big I think exposure which also need to be tightened. So together, this should actually form the future of fintech, and and also bring a little bit of maturity into the fintech total ecosystem.
Absolutely. Thank you, Manas. Brilliant points. I'll go to BJ with the same question, but a little bit on that is essentially so if you keep as I mean one part is definitely the banks who has already started their digital journey. They have got that what do you call digital skeleton or the backbone ready to go digital. A few banks are already ahead in the journey, but there is a huge. I mean, if you look at globally, there is a huge mid-size and a small-size banks, okay, and also the community banks. Okay, probably I'm talking about only the urban community banks. Also here, I think they have not yet started their digital journey, and because of that, probably they are struggling because they have got a customer base, but as they don't have this digital services, now this customer base is shrinking, right? And somebody is snatching away their customers. Okay, so they are in a thread. So how fintech can play a major role, especially to those banks or those financial institutions? I mean, the same question added to that this part, Vijay.
Utpal, what is question to me?
Yes.
Okay.
So do you want
The
do you want
last part I missed it out because I think there was a disturbance in the internet. If you could repeat the last question.
Yeah, so I said the same question, okay, but only thing I have added is basically now if we keep aside the already digital banks, okay, who have already started their digital journey, there is a huge what do you call section of the banks, mainly small size, mid size community banks, okay, who have not yet started their digital journey, right? And this is kind of a threat for them, correct? Because
Yes.
their customer base is shrinking, other banks are snatching away their customers and business. So how fintech can play a major role in this area? I mean, for their survival. Of course, they have got an option to merge with the bigger banks, and that's what it is happening. So every year you see across the globe, the smaller banks are collapsing with the other bigger banks. But at the same time, they don't want to collapse, right? They want to sustain of their own. So how fintechs can play a role into that, or they are already playing? So that is my question.
Okay. Utpal, thank for this. Okay. I would always say that especially when you look at the big banks, they're already in the race, and they are almost competing, whether it's in-house or with time with multiple fintech companies. Okay. So when you bank, the small finance bank, or the cooperative banks, which are already in the typical legacy part where they're still working on the older systems and losing their customer base because of the technology coming in and the millennium moving into the faster. The only option left as on today, one is you invest capex and revamp the whole thing, which is going to be a huge capex, and it's going to take a longer time. By the time you complete it, you would have down to the fintechs who already have a solution built in. They have studied the market, they built in the solutions. But look at the fintechs which can go with you in hand. It shouldn't be like, fintech comes up and they start working with you and after that they collapse. It shouldn't be like that. Especially the smaller banks. If I give you a very precise example, like cooperative banks today, they are being told to take the technology to sustain in the industry. For them to run, go tie up with the good fintechs, work with them, because today fintechs come with a single digital platform. They have multiple APIs given to it. They come out with the microservice architecture. By default, you don't have to, you just have, like as Prasanna was saying, you just have to plug in and start using the services. So this will help the bank to sustain and stay in the market. If the internal management decides use fintech as a first front line of defense to sustain in the industry, then gradually at the back end start building your own system. Because in our country, the as per the regulatory requirement, some of the core lending system, the customer database, should always be held by the process owner. Like, the bank should hold it, whether you do it in-house, whether you do it at co-location, or whether you do it on the cloud, on a private cloud. So this regulation will always bind us to some limit. So fintech can always complement us with the kind of digital systems what they have, help us in growing, building the database. Okay, this is really fintech one way. But at the same time, my one more thing, when we are tying up with the fintechs are the companies which are very fast growing. They come out with technology left, right, center. But you should always have a proper SLA with them. They are. I'm not trying to pinpoint anyone, or I'm trying to. Nobody should feel offense on that. So fintech companies, they go very fast, but they don't look at the threat they have. Technology is built very well on the faster platform, but the crisis they're going to face. We talk about the cyber attack, the ransomware attack. These they should be very, very precise. They should be very clear how they are building the solution. Every solution they build, it should be built. Security as a design should be incorporated in this. It shouldn't be like, we do a damage control. When there's something, then we build up a security or come into picture. This has to be by default, because when for a smaller bank, for example, I take my okay, we are in discussion with multiple co-lending or multiple other things what we are talking about. We are very, very clear in that, because we don't want to get into any kind of breach or any kind of data loss or any kind of threat which will have a financial loss. More than the financial, the reputational loss. But I think of late we had one of the well-known organizations where their PAN card was misused, PAN and Aadhaar was misused, and loans were given to a person who has never borrowed it in area. So fintechs is a very fast-growing company. But at the same time, the person who sits and that agreement what you are, the SLA what you are, it should be very depth understand. And going forward, fintech is the solution which will help us in building, rather than you investing on a capex, increasing your manpower, fighting your attrition rate, getting all. Let's focus on the business, build fintech as a solution to help us out in growing. So we both go together in the journey with a proper understanding. And second thing, we should always obey to the regulatory requirements and see that we don't bypass any kind of activities, because we hold the customer data. Exposing the customer, it's like you selling yourself. That's what I see. And we have to be very, very clear, because today technology, you can't keep investing money on everything. Today we have to have a CISO or in-house. Today it's a mandatory requirement to have a CISO in-house, but having a CISO in-house is going to be a huge cost for us. Today we are getting even the virtual CISOs to do an audit for us and get things moving. But these are the ones which will help us in going. Whether you talk about audit, whether you talk about the digital solution building, acquiring of customer, and all this will help you to hold back the customers, customer centric, and especially the millennium kind of customers. And like Srinidhi was saying, his dad was more interested in the kind of solutions being provided. He likes to work on the apps what is given by the banks or the Ola. So today everyone are getting educated. Everyone wants to be. Even my dad, he doesn't go to the bank. He does everything on his this one.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it is a mixed culture, and we have to be very, very precise what we want, how we are very clear roadmap drawn. And review has to be done very periodically. That's it.
Correct, Vijay. Thank you so much for the insights, and thank you. So with the same question, I will go to Vivek. Vivek, what are your views on that? And also, I would say, for a smaller financial, I'm not just talking about banks, for a smaller, probably financial institution. Okay. If they want to go digital in a big way, uh, probably by themselves it will be a little bit difficult, because they don't have that experience, right? Because the experience of bringing that complete digital ecosystem, or converting it to digital ecosystem of an organization which is running in a traditional model, uh, it takes that kind of experience, it takes that kind of a technology strength, and a lot of other things. Of course, many other things are there. So in this kind of a scenario, uh, mm, how this startup fintechs, I mean, the startup fintechs are small fintechs basically, and also the technology providers, okay, wherein the service providers coming into picture. Uh, how it could be a good blend of this bank plus a startup plus these technology providers. Probably only this startups are coming up with a lot of high-end technology experience, analytics, data lake building, running high-end predictive prescriptive analytics, then probably AI, ML, a lot of other things, and the conventional uh, technology players coming up with all kind of building that infrastructure, building API ecosystem. I mean, bringing all data into your data, like all kind of your ETL, this, that, and all those things. So how it is? How do you see that, Vivek?
Okay, so I find it very interesting, bank versus fintechs. So for years, the relationship between banks and fintechs reminded me one of that scene in Finding Nemo with the vegetarian sharks. So in the movie, that sharks are forced to recite the mantra, "Fish are friends, not food." Torn between befriending fish and having them for dinner. The shark school was pretty much how I imagined the banks, wanting to dismantle the fintechs while publicly shaking hands and playing happy families. Today, though, there seem to be less and less acting. The banks are becoming true vegetarians. That's because as fintechs has matured, it's increasingly spawned companies that cater to banks, and the sector's early reputation as a disruptor has morphed into something more placid, more like a companion. Indeed, the vast majority of fintechs we see today are business facing, making them banks' friends, not prey. From cybersecurity firms to open banking platforms and infrastructure players, a whole industry of B2B fintechs see one dominant revenue sources like the banks. Far from a sector that wants to disrupt banks, most fintechs are knocking on their doors. Only a handful of fintechs that could actually weaken the banks remain. Equally, banks now want to harness fintech's power. Banks no longer view fintechs as the plaything of 20 somethings funders prancing around with fancy interfaces. They want in and are dishing out big bucks to do so. That may be why last year B2B fintechs attracted more funding than B2C in a Europe. By and large, phishing banks are the enemy no longer rings true for a fintech that majority of whom they are in a bed with. The reality of that fintechs and banks are broadly speaking interdependently. They use each other in varying levels of harmony for more than they rival each other.
Great, Vivek. I think you nicely said, and thank you for that. And considering the time, and because we will have to open the floor for the audience also, I will go with my last question. And this is basically, I think, all of us. I don't know. I want to know the reactions, because if you see, till now there was an ambiguity, okay, of holding a digital asset, okay, or holding any kind of digital currency, all those things. So whether actually I'm doing something right or wrong, is it a crime or something like that? At least these things were going on in India. But at the same time, there was a huge investment that Indians has done into the digital asset as well as the digital currencies there. Now, government coming up with a clear stand on, like, yes, you can hold digital assets, but whenever you are transacting or selling, you give me the tax. And same goes for the digital currencies. And also, I mean, going one step further, now they are advocating digital currencies, bringing a digital currency under the purview of Reserve Bank of India. So that's a good news in one way. Yeah, but I would like to know your reactions. I mean, how do you see it? And probably that will link to the things like Prasanna has mentioned, metaverse and all, right? because ultimately the metaverse, if it is made, so I can see metaverse is one of the biggest digital platform, okay, which is going to come up, and a marketplace, okay, wherein the backbone will be the blockchain, NFTs, and all those things, right? And you can. So I'll start with Nitin first. Nitin, and I would request, because as we don't have time, so probably we'll have to restrict ourselves to 2 minutes, probably. Yeah.
Sure, absolutely. I think in terms of the accepting digital assets, I don't know. I think the stand is still, to me, it's unclear. I think while they have mentioned that any kind of a gain that you make on the sale of a digital asset, it would be taxable. So yes, certainly more uh, tax revenue for the government. But how would it pan out in the coming years? That is yet to be seen. Would we allow transactions on the street? Can I buy something in bitcoins or any other digital currency from a shop directly? I don't know. I think we still find that out in the coming years. Digital currency, I think, is a really good move by the government. Again, how would it be structured? That is yet to be seen. But there is trillions of rupees today, which is in circulation in the country. If that comes into the digital form, there would be much more control in terms of, I think, what is overall money in circulation. Uh, and issues like fake notes, etc., like those no longer would, ideally should not be there. So I see a huge opportunity there as well. Very, very optimistic about that. Generally on the blockchain thing, I think that there have been cycles in blockchain. I think there was a period about 2017 when we saw a huge ICO boom. A lot of companies raised a lot of money through the ICO channel. uh, Later last year, we have been seeing a lot of NFT boom, and the associated metaverse is another thing that is happening. Uh, so again, I think in small cycles, this boom is coming, and then people have started to recognize this overall concept of blockchain. While I believe that the enterprises and the banks, etc., would be slow to adopt this, but this evolution would come first from the consumer channel, where blockchain to sorry crypto to crypto trade, something like that would be something which would see really fast, because there is a very strong undercurrent around the community that is building and evolving around this particular space. Back to you, Utpal.
Thank you, Nitin. Thank you. Brilliant. So, Srinidhi, same question,
Yeah,
but
sure,
one
sure.
additional thing into that. So, if digital currency comes, okay, is it going to give a quick competition to the traditional way of doing business or traditional currencies? Same question with
Sure.
this.
Sure. So I think so looking at what has happened in other industries, if you will, as well as the size of our market, I think both will coexist. Right, actually, at least for the foreseeable future, whenever digital currency comes, right, and also it's a digital is a force that is definitely going to come, and our way taking this actually is a few steps forward, and a very very forward looking thing, I would say. No, while and also as far as cryptos are concerned, while putting like X% of tax seems like indirectly legitimizing the cryptos, we still, I think, I go with Nitin here. I think it's quite unclear, way in which direction they want to head. So because the volume of the tax, shows that okay, probably it's a barrier, but indirectly legitimizing it while putting up a huge barrier to it, right? So that's where it's going. So it's quite unclear right now, but digital as a way to do transactions is definitely here to stay, and that's a force that nobody can stop. So the faster we all adopt, the better as an economy will be.
Absolutely, Srinidhi. Thank you so much. Going to Manoj. Manoj, same question. Now, how do you see it, like not only a country specific but globally also? Okay, because now it will be cross border. Okay, so once metaverse comes into picture, NFTs, digital currencies, they are kind of thing. So is it a good thing for the economy of the country, or it is going in a different direction? How do you see?
Great question. I think I would say wait and watch is something that it has to mature over time. See whether we can use it as a currency or is it an asset which will grow. That is something that need to be seen. Will it complement the currency which is in circulation, or is it something that is completely different? That is also what to be seen. uh, Taxing is based on an asset which actually appreciates. So appreciation of digital currency and the taxing, that will keep it in a different level. So coming back to again what Nitin also told, spoke about, is whether I can use it as a currency to do my transactions. So that's something that I would probably like to do. But the best adoption will be for the digital currency is to complement the existing currency. And we coming back to your last question, whether the global scenario. See, the norms for this currency and its adoption is still at a very nascent stage. So it has to mature over time, and more regulations and directives that need to come to make sure that it succeeds. So if it is burdened with too much of overheads, regulatory tax and other stuff, then it's not going to be very popular. It will probably remain with the elite and not have widespread adoption. So that's my take on the future of this digital currency.
Excellent, Manoj. Excellent. Going to Vivek. Vivek, how? So there are two aspects to it. Okay, so one side is definitely the consumer side. Okay, we, normal, common mass, and another side is financial institutions, the banks and all. So how do you see? Is it going in favor of the financial institutions, or it is going in favor of consumer, or it is a win-win situation for both? How do you look at that?
So I think it goes in the favor of both. So because you see that now the Reserve Bank of India will introduce digital currency in next financial year, beginning April 2022, to boost the digital economy and efficient currency management. So from that perspective, definitely this will boost this will be benefited for both the institutions, and the introduction of the this central bank digital currency will give it a big boost to the digital economy, and this digital currency will also help in the currency management system. So digital currency will also lead to a more efficient and a cheaper currency management system. It is therefore proposed to introduce digital rupee using blockchain and other technologies to be issued, might be by the Reserve Bank of India, and that might be next year.
Great, great, Vivek. Coming to Vijay. So now there is a conceptual, the fundamental difference here. Okay, once is decentralized. Okay, and what is there is already centralized. Okay, now coming to the same question, how do you see? Because these are both contradictory. If you look at, you want an institution in between. At the same time, you want to introduce a decentralized kind of a mechanism. So how do you see it, Vijay?
Well, it's too early to judge on this particular kind of decision taken. Okay, now when I look at decentralization and the central command, our complement with the digital currency or the cryptocurrency, what we are talking about, and the tax implemented onto the transactional value for that, whatever it's been done by the GOI, it's too early to comment, because you may find a lot of changes coming going forward. You may find a lot of people's, ifs and buts coming up here and there, because nobody's actually understood what does Indian market looks like. When you talk about digital currency, or when you talk about decentralization of any process for that matter, or centralizing and controlling that particular process, that is acceptance by because we being a democratic country, we have our own rights to speak on many things. So when you look at decentralizing or centralizing or controlling any kind of process or bringing any kind of process, is always a challenge for us. So we have to how it's going to be. And especially cryptocurrency, I always feel that these digital currency and cryptocurrency should always be part of our digital roadmap. When you look at digital India, it should always be there, and this will help us in a long way. When you talk about the revenue, the economy, and all the things, help us, and it will reduce a lot of frauds and illegal activities, which can really get things into place. But on the maturity part, again, decentralizing or centralizing part, it's too early for me, from my point of view, to comment on this particular thing. Okay, and I leave it to the fellow panelists who had already spoken about that, thing, and to the GOI, that's government of India, to decide what's right for the citizen of India, and how whatever you do, it should never have an impact on the economy of the country. You should always run things in a proper way, okay, and without compromising on the privacy of every individual, and see that that particular individual shouldn't be burdened with a huge amount of taxes on whatever he is doing. So keeping all that in mind, I would like, that's my takeaway for this particular question you asked me now.
Absolutely, Vijay. I think I also agree with all of you in many points. Many experts are also saying the true globalization will happen now. Okay, uh, because till now it is probably not true or not complete. But now actual globalization will happen, wherein the countries, the boundaries, and all those things are. So these are very nice things to think about. But again, agree with you guys. Like practically how it is going to take the shape
Yes,
is also important. That's time is going to tell us, and we'll see what role we can play
sure, sure, sure.
to actually
That's very
bring it with our expertise or our whatever little knowledge that we have, how we can contribute to this to bring it to something which is actually good for the society, good for the country, and good for the humanity at large. Right. So with that, I think we are already
fine.
almost done with our time, but we have got probably 4 minutes. So I would like to hand it over to uh, or open the floor for the any kind of questions for our panelists. So organizing committee, any questions from the audience to our panelist? Sandeep?
So, yeah, definitely, sir. Thank you so much for this amazing panel. I think one major question that has come up through our surveys also and through while we were promoting the event, and especially this panel, was one question that has been surrounding is cryptocurrencies, dark web. They've been used there. A lot of illegal activities have been happening through cryptocurrencies. So how safe are cryptocurrencies, especially regarding how safe are they? Is it a safe mode of investment, or is it too volatile right now to invest? Currently is a question that we would like to ask all the panelists out here.
Absolutely. So probably uh, mm, I can go with Nitin first. So Nitin, what are your views uh,
Sure.
on
As
this?
a simple answer, yeah. So I think it's very nascent at the moment. So in terms of the volatility, and as an investment instrument, it's highly volatile, and people who really understand the ecosystem should only enter, and who people who can basically afford losing a part of their savings if they're investing in that, they only those should participate in this. That's my submission.
Sridhi.
Yeah, exactly the same thing. No, that's the same thing much more.
So,
It's too volatile and too new, and we don't know the value of inherent assets, right? If you are investing in a mutual fund or a stock, you know what's the no, inherent value of the asset, right? So you don't know that. So it's basically you're gambling. It's for all practical purposes. But only time
Vijay.
will tell.
Again, I agree to Srinidhi what he said. It's till you don't know, let's not get into something. Sit and watch how things go, because cryptocurrency is always given a wrong feedback in the industry today. It's been misused for many things, whether it's on a dark net or any kind of today any threat, any ransomware attack. Cryptocurrency plays a very important role. So it's too early. We should get things in place, policies in place. Then it's good that you start investing. And again, it's an individual decision also. We respect that.
Manoj.
see, cryptocurrency, if you can remove the anonymity in the cryptocurrency and bring more transparency, then it will be much more usable. Otherwise, the anonymity actually brings in those advantage to hackers and other adverse players. so that they can use the anonymity to use it in criminal activity. So controls to remove anonymity is the key to make it more transparent and usable to the society at large.
Vivek,
Yeah, at this moment is highly volatile. If someone want to invest, so they should be aware of all the ecosystem and all the risk involved in that. And if they are ready to take a risk, then definitely go. Otherwise, I think first they should be aware of all the ecosystem and the risk involved in this cryptocurrency.
excellent. So my views on this is actually goes with all what you say, because yes, volatile. But many experts today are saying that if you are actually in your portfolio, if you are doing a investment, so definitely in some part, okay, it is a good advice that you should have some digital asset. Uh, how much? Uh, Nobody knows. Okay, then again, it is a individual risk appetite that you have. But
Okay,
yes,
one last question that we've been asked, and this is, I think, this is going to be a really big answer for it. So, government of India has announced the digital currency. The listener or the viewer says, what do you think will be the next step, or what should the government take the next step to launch a digital currency? So, is something according to you is the question that have been asked on our portal.
okay, great. So Nitin, again, we'll go one by one.
Sure, I think identifying the right technology, I think that would be a really key element here. So while everybody is very used to doing things through crypto world basically runs on blockchain, but in this context, would this be something which would be blockchain driven or something which would be totally off the chain? Is something we'll have to see, because there is a distinction between the two. If you look at, for example, Bitcoin, there it's not very easy to print money or mint new bitcoins. There is a specific algorithm through which it actually happens, and there is no single entity who can actually control the overall supply of the coins there. While in our context, when we go live with something like a digital currency, for us, government would certainly want something which would they would want a certain control on the overall supply of the coins and how is that distributed. So I think the technology for them is going to be extremely key. I'm sure they would be working on that at the moment.
Srinidhi,
Yeah, so there are two dimensions to this. One is the technology aspect, was as Nitin was talking about, and second aspect is the modalities on the ground in terms of how it will coexist with the current currency and so on and so forth. The modalities of how it will work, right? So these are the two major things to be sorted out before anything becomes real.
great. Vijay,
Well, again, as I say, it is we leave it to the GUI to decide how it's going to be done. But digital currency will always be a future roadmap. But you should always keep one thing in mind: how it's going to be utilized, who all is going to utilize, and see that the end user, the common man, starts using it. It shouldn't be only at the layer 4 or layer 5 level. Few people, it shouldn't be a hybrid culture. If you're going, we go with it. And a periodic time should be given to everyone to adapt the culture and start using it. And I would we welcome this digital currency, but it's one of the globalization which India is going to play very importantly from the digital roadmap point of view.
Manoj,
Yeah, I agree with all the co-panelists. And one thing that I'd just like to add is, government should have very complete guidelines on the life cycle of the digital currency. Still, from the inception of the digital currency, how it is to be brought to the system, and you know, all these guidelines should be made pretty stringent, and make sure that those are followed. So that will help adoption of the digital currency and prevent any misuse as well.
Vivek,
Yeah, so like I said, the digital currency will give a big boost to the digital economy. Digital currency will also help in the currency management system. This will lead to a more efficient and a cheaper currency management system. And they might introduce some digital rupee using a blockchain and some other technologies.
Great. So my views on this is, as government has thought about this. Okay, so probably there will be a pressing need for it also, right? Otherwise, nobody will go in that way, coming up with a completely digital currency kind of a thing. And also, they feel that they should not be left out in this. If you look at the global scenario which is happening, okay, so in many countries, I mean, it's already been authorized and kind of thing. So I'm hoping, and of course I agree with all of you, they need to see the technology part, and also they need to see the entire life cycle, how the digital currency is going to be governed into the different steps of its life cycle. And hope, I mean, it is going to give a great boost to our Indian economy. And I absolutely agree with Vijay. India is going to play, and it is not me. Many people from outside are also saying India is going to play a major role in this, in the world platform, in terms of when it comes to digital currency, metaverse, and all other things, digital assets. Yes, absolutely.
Well, thank you so much, sir. I think that's it. We have a couple of other questions, but I think the time has run out
Yep.
on the panel. And I think no matter, in fact, we can do a complete conference on digital currency, and we can put out each topic on a separate panel and have all you wonderful panelists join us, back there. And only then, I think we might do some justice to the digital economy, especially the blockchain and, various other nitty-gritties of the digital currency. Uh, but nonetheless, I think the government has thought about it. Maybe it's definitely a positive sign, but let's hope that it should roll out a little sooner than so that the ambiguity or the speculations or the talks that we are having might get turned into reality. And instead of like other government policies that gets implemented very slowly in the system, hopefully this becomes a little faster, is what we can expect from the government of India. So thank you so much, sir. If you would like to wrap up the panel, or else we could just end the session here. It has been a wonderful session. Thank you, Mr. Utpal, for wonderfully managing and moderating this panel. Thank you, Nitin sir, Srinidhi sir, Dominic sir, Manoj
Thank
ji,
you so much.
and Vivek sir. Uh, any last submissions would definitely be welcome.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
It was, it
Thanks,
was
everyone. Thank you so
Thank
Thank
much.
you.
you.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Okay.
everyone.
Thanks. Bye. Bye.
Thanks, Sandeep.
Thank you so much, sir. We hope to see you